Welcome to the WNBF UK podcast.
Okay, guys, welcome to another WNBF UK podcast. You're here with myself, Leon Mitchell, WNBF Pro, and I'm joined by, if I had a drum roll, I'd give him a drum roll. It's Steve Hall, podcaster / sponsored athlete. Steve, welcome to the show, my man.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And I think it's really cool that the WNBF are running this, like the UK WNBF are running this podcast. I think it's really cool. And it's great to be chatting to you, Leon.
No worries, my man. Like, you're the pro at this. I'm still learning, as I said previously before we hit. Yeah, just trying to catch and look at that background in terms. Look at his studio. His studio just looks on point. So, yo, WNBF UK, we need to sort out my studio and get that up on point. But Steve, let's get into who is Steve Hall and where did it all become? Where did it all start for Steve, the coach / podcaster?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'll start from kind of, I guess, when I first was into just at school. I think it's always interesting to hear about people's backgrounds in terms of were they that overweight kid or were they that skinny kid, or that's typically where people come from. So I'd always been massively into PE, and playing football was my thing back at school. And I was pretty good. I had an athletic background. I wasn't the fastest. I wasn't the best at long distance. I wasn't the best footballer, but I was kind of an all-rounder, kind of decent at everything. But I never took it when I went to university. I never took PE even as an A level. And that was partly down to the people that do it. Unfortunately, I was bullied at school, and that kind of put me off going down that route. And then I went to university and I studied geography with business. So nothing like what I study now. And I actually got into the gym though at 16 years old. Or just under 16 actually. So I was 15 going on 16. I remember, because I don't know if it's still that way. I have no idea, but I think you had to be 16 to be allowed to be in the weights room. So I was I'm 16. I was almost 16. So I used to have a split of dumbbells and then machines and cables. And that was my split. I do dumbbells, I do machines and cables, and I do both. And when I reflect on it now, I look at some of the people that were in my year also training. There was a guy, and I can remember it vividly. He was benching 30 kilos, and we were 16 at the time. And I was he was benching dumbbells 30 kilos aside, each hand. And I was man, I can do I don't know, 20 at best. And he was the guy that was the best at every sport and thing. So I already was seeing a glance at my genetic potential, maybe a little bit there, and in some way, shape or form. But I loved it. And I loved kind of working on myself and being in the gym. And as you know, when you start out, you're just trying to hit a PR every session, push harder. I really was fairly clueless, especially to the nutrition side. I was eat clean, and I'll take I think I bought some protein powder from Boots at the time, in the Boots pharmacy, and I just I down it in the toilet, because I'd be I don't want people to know I'm on a protein shake. They might think I'm cheating or something.
Yeah.
And so I just wasn't eating enough, even though I was eating some of the right things. And so progress kind of stalled out for a long period of time. So I went to university, and I didn't really gain much size or muscle. I was lean, and I was kind of the skinny kid at school. I've never been overweight. It's always been a struggle to gain weight, in fact. So I came from that kind of background. And it was whilst at university where my kind of passion for bodybuilding specifically really just took over. Because at the time when I was at school, at school, and then when I went to uni, I was doing a bunch of sports. So I was playing football, tried that a little bit. I tried running club, I tried rowing, and in the background, I was still going to the gym every day, basically. And I do HIIT training and sprints to try and burn off some extra fat before dinner or something. I had a bit of a bad mindset surrounding food and kind of exercise and everything like that. Yeah, it was essentially in my second year where I was on one of these runs I would do. So it was a 10-kilometer run I do around campus. I had my Garmin watch on, my Garmin heart rate monitor around my waist and everything. And I can remember vividly on the Garmin watch, it would have your previous runs. So you could almost see a shadow of where your previous best was. So I'd always try and beat, like I said, in the gym, always trying to beat my numbers on that run, always trying to beat my number. So I remember looking at it, looking down and being okay, I need to go if I'm going to beat this kind of last sprint. I came to some traffic lights flashing amber, and I was right, I can go. So I sprinted, looked right, white van came and smacked me on the side. And that led to me being in hospital for like a month in the end. I had a fractured skull, I had some scarring, and some like they stitched me up. But the long-term consequence of that was kind of it messed with my hormone production and my hypothalamus. I was on some medication afterwards for low sodium, low testosterone during that period of time. And I did actually, and it's relevant to the WNBF, and I think it's probably interesting for people listening. I was on TRT for, I can't remember how many months. I think it was under a year that I took TRT because I had gynecomastia. That's what led to them realizing that I had low testosterone.
Yeah.
I developed these lumps under my nipples, and I had all the other symptoms as well that you could imagine. I was like a 20-year-old kid basically, and I didn't have like facial hair. I didn't have any of like the male characteristics in terms of like, I was just, women were not interesting to me. I didn't want to like, none of like that was interesting. I was depressed. I wasn't enjoying life at all. It was actually the hardest time I've ever had in terms of life. Like it was very, very depressing. So TRT completely changed the game. So when I think about, again, it's interesting, like people who are on high doses of like steroids and things, I can absolutely see how that fucking changes the game hugely, because the tiny little bit of gel that I rubbed onto my nipples to help the gynecomastia go away, which helped me grow back my beard, which brought my testosterone levels back to natural levels, it completely changed my life for the better. But during that time, this is where I was finding bodybuilding, because bodybuilding was like my kind of the thing that let me work on myself and give me confidence. Because after I got hit by the van, I didn't want to go on runs anymore. I was on fluid restrictions. I could only drink 250 mils of fluid a day, which is like, I remember Innocence movies had like 250 mil bottles, and I could just fill one of those with water. And that was my limit for the day, because otherwise my sodium levels would go so low that I would potentially have a seizure and like I could pass away. So I had to be really careful with that. Luckily, that kind of resolved itself, and obviously my testosterone resolved itself. And during this period of time, the only place I really found solitude was the gym, and trying to build up my confidence, build my physique up to the gains that I lost in hospital, because I lost it all, as you could imagine, when you're in hospital bed, not eating, lying down, doing nothing. The gains just disappear. So I kind of came out of hospital, and I wanted to learn how to build muscle a bit more effectively. So I went on like some bodybuilding forums. This is where we got information at the time. This is where I found out about bulking. I didn't know about bulking before. So I started this crazy calorie surplus. I was gaining like 6 pounds a week for like weeks on weeks on weeks. I regained all the weight I lost whilst I was in hospital and more. So by the end of the year, like I was the biggest I'd ever been, but not looking too sharp, to be honest. But I then started to try and further educate myself, and I came across people might know like Lyle McDonald, for example. Bodyrecomposition.com was his website, and I read his articles over and over and over and digested it. I started to find Matt Ogus. So he was like the big YouTuber at the time, and he was getting affiliated with 3DMJ. And I found the knowledge that they were providing in terms of like macros, flexible dieting, progressive overload, like structure to your training. I was like, man, this is awesome. I want to compete as a natural bodybuilder. Like this is like the next step for me. Obviously, this coincided with me being on TRT. I was like, fuck, like I can't compete naturally if I'm on this substance, which is clearly banned. So I went to my doctor and was just like, this is what my ambitions are. What do you think about me coming off? He was like, well, we've got you to a point where you're on like a low dose that's sustaining your levels. We can trial you coming off. I don't think, like, he didn't really know. He was like, most people, when they go on, I'm sure there's maybe people listening who are on TRT potentially. Once you go on, you normally are on for life. Like it's a kind of that sort of thing. But I came off, and we had testing done kind of intermittently over a course of months, and I sustained low normal levels. And that was good enough for me. I was like, great, I'm off the thing. So I didn't really know then that certain kind of organizations, I didn't know if they'd let me compete. I was just like, if I'm off it, then surely I can compete. But anyway, I wasn't sure. So I emailed not WNBF, it was the UKDFBA at the time, who were affiliated with the WNBF. I emailed them, I emailed the BNBF, and I emailed the MPA, and just was like, explain my situation. The MPA and UKDFBA were like, with doctor's notes and like that information, you pass like polygraph testing or any testing we give you, you can come and compete. Unfortunately, the BNBF were like, strict. They wouldn't let me compete,
Yeah.
which was unfortunate. So then I competed for the first time with the UKDFBA and MPA in 2014. And that was like a huge learning curve. I don't know about you, Leon, but the first time like you compete, if you don't like really know what you're getting into, which I did and I didn't, like it was like I learned a lot.
Yeah. I always think back to that first show experience, and I always laugh because I shared my first show experience with my brother. And you know, when I look at how we approached that, I'm like, man, we didn't have a clue what we was doing back then. So the learning since then has definitely been taken on board. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I was fortunate. I had a coach who was like educated. He knew what he was doing, but it still was, I didn't know like all the things that I would feel and the low energy levels and how I just become like the laziest person and just a arsehole basically. So that was a huge learning curve. But during that period of time as well, I decided to kind of transition my career from, I was working in a London office where I actually met my girlfriend, who is still my girlfriend now. She stayed with me even through that prep, which is surprising. She doesn't have fond memories of that. So I transitioned to be a PT because I kind of found this, like the education, and I built up my physique in a way. And I was like, man, if this, I feel like bodybuilding saved me in many ways. Like it allowed, I feel like part of it has certainly helped me sustain like healthy hormone levels, and also the confidence it gave me. And it gave me an avenue to have control in my life when everything was out of control. So I feel like I owe so much to the sport. So in any way which I can kind of give back now and then, like I love doing it. And so that's kind of where my passion came. And I was like, man, if there are people who, I don't know, they want to lose a bit of fat or they want to gain a bit of muscle, like if I can have taken myself from basically ground zero to then competing on a bodybuilding stage in the best shape of my life, like I felt like I could help anyone at the time, which obviously isn't quite true, but I definitely wanted to help as many people as I could. So I became a one-on-one PT in 2014, but I only did that for less than a year. And weirdly, during that time, online coaching wasn't huge. So there were a few people doing it, and I obviously had a coach, and people from surrounding kind of the schools of the area that I was PTing at, they saw me getting in incredible shape. I had the nickname Compound Guy because no one was doing compound lifts. It was just me like squatting and benching and deadlifting. Everyone else was like doing machines and curls. They're like, why don't we look like you? So I started to help some of the kids basically from around the circling schools. And I just did like their nutrition and training online. I didn't PT them in person. And I got to a point where I could start charging for that. I had a reasonable client base. And I kind of took a risk of moving out of home. I was lucky enough living at home still. I moved out into London with my girlfriend. And I just was like, man, I have to go all in now. So I started educating myself like even further, reading loads, like writing a lot. And I developed the brand Revive Stronger. And it's kind of flourished ever since. That's kind of the background story. And then I've competed since 2017. Recently, same season as you, Leon, 2021. And I've managed to level up not just myself as a competitor, but the business to now like I have this studio. If you look back at like the first podcast episodes, I don't even know how like I managed to run it. My internet connection was the worst. My setup was like standing on top of like, I had my laptop on top of boxes. I didn't have any like anything. I didn't have any of the gear at all. Not that you need a lot for it. So it's just been a lot of hard work and effort with both business and as an athlete. And I've managed to be reasonable at both. So yeah, that's kind of the story behind, and that's why Revive Stronger is the name. Sorry, just to make people aware of like, that's my brand name, Revive Stronger. And that all came about that accident and essentially kind of reviving Stronger out of it.
Man, that's a beautiful story, man. See, that's the great thing about having these conversations, because you really get to know people's journeys. And I think, everyone ends up to a certain point through some sort of experiences or some sort of reasons as to why they got there. And it's always good, when you can just dive a little bit deeper, and then it opens up your eyes. Every time I talk to someone, I hear a different story, a different reason to actually why they got to stage or why they fell in love with bodybuilding. And I think your one's a beautiful piece, through your personal experiences, and then wanting to enable to other people to kind of go on and, unlock their potential through you just giving back through your knowledge and experience. And that's an amazing thing. And I think we're starting to see more and more of that come through. And this is the reason why a lot of people, even they've got people behind them, you know, in terms of trying to drive them, trying to give them the right structure, the right routines, etc. You know, I just love it. At the moment, it's such an epic time.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever been so much information out there. It's like when we're speaking, like when I first was competing, and like when you've probably first started as well, like we didn't have access to like the knowledgeable people that are out there now. And there's people like even Andrew Chappelle and Steph Noble, like they put out tons of educational knowledge as well. It's great to see it. It felt much more like secretive almost, or like, I don't know, they just we're kind of coming down to fundamental principles and things like this that people can start like edging out their own methods and methodologies. And it's definitely not perfect. Like there's bad information out there equally on some sides, but I definitely think it's helping the sport as a whole grow for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And what I've noticed is that a lot of natural athletes are leaning more towards the evidence-based kind of research pieces that are out there. Well, so, you know, that's what I've noticed, that everyone's leaning into these, you know, these that have been published by some of these great people. Like you talked about Lyle McDonald, you know, I remember just being up on Body Recomposition website, you know, these forums, just like reading the various different threads and thinking, damn, if this is evidence-based, you know, this has got to have some weight behind it. So there's some great people out there, and I think, you know, if anything, you know, the next generations of athletes coming through are just going to be more and more empowered with knowledge as they come through, because it's going to be widely available now. Love
yeah,
that.
I think it's you start just getting pieces of the puzzle to kind of level, allowing you to keep progressing. Because I know for me, some people are lucky out there who they can, I don't know, they pick up a weight, like the guy I mentioned, he like pick up a weight, he just grows, which worked to a certain level for me. And then I just hit a wall. It's like, now I need to think a bit harder about, okay, like, why am I coming in and I'm regressing? Oh, I'm probably super fatigued. I need to like take a bit of a light session. And some of these things you would come to intuitively, like people like, I don't know, hopefully they don't get an injury, but maybe they're just like, oh, I just feel really beat up, I'm going to take a week off. It's like, oh, it's your deload. But now we're getting kind of names behind some of these principles. And there's some people doing some great work that are, I think the next generation of athletes, or we see it now, like as natural bodybuilding is even getting better, like to be the top, and like for yourself, Leon, to go pro, you have to be such high caliber. Like it's not easy to go pro, especially in Europe and the UK. It's just like there's levels.
100%. And I think if anything, you know, when I look across the spectrum at the moment, the rest of the world is working hard. Like everyone's working hard in their own respectful fields. You know what I mean? The Spanish, the Italians, you name it, man. There's some crazy guys out there. You think you're putting in 110? There's other people doing exactly the same. So you just got to constantly just be up in your game and remain consistent. You know, it's just what is required at the moment, seriously, when you want to take it to that high level. So Steve, tell me about how you balance your work life, because it sounds like you do a hell of a lot. So you've got the podcasting in there, you've got your coaching services in there, you've got the misses in there, you know what I mean? That sounds like a crazy spectrum. So how are you balancing that out?
So I would say I'm incredibly fortunate. And it's always funny when I look at competitors. The vast majority of competitors now are like either PTs or they're online coaches. They're in the industry themselves, because I think if we weren't, even though it's hard for one-on-one PTs, I think harder than like an online coach. If like I had to, if I had to do my previous job or be like, I don't know, a lawyer, an accountant, whatever, I don't know. I've got someone competing very soon. Actually, he's a doctor, like being on your feet, like having to be at like people's whim. And even when I was one-on-one PTing and I was competing, it gets, you're so tired. You get kind of like a bit moody. So it's hard. You have to maintain your emotions and your energy levels for that sort of thing. So it can be really hard. So I would say I'm certainly blessed with the job that I do, in that I can sit at my computer, like the podcast, like I can do this and that's my job. I can kind of record videos and go over spreadsheets, and like it's relatively low fatigue and I can manage my time. So key for me is I've been doing this now since 2015. So it's just like time management when I'm working at home, because it's easy to get distracted and things like this. So I just make sure, as like every bodybuilder knows, you need structure, routine. We thrive off it. We love it, almost to our detriment sometimes, where we need to be a bit more flexible and let other things in. But that's what I have on a day-to-day basis. So I know I have my client work at particular times. I know I need to schedule in podcasts at particular times. And then like, fortunately or unfortunately, my girlfriend works a lot as well. She loves her job and she works really hard. So like the time we get to spend together, we live together. So we just spend that time together. And then I'm not the most social creature. I'd say I'm quite kind of introverted and I like being on my own. And I'm not a big like party goer, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Kind of had that at uni a little bit and decided that wasn't for me anyway. And my bodybuilding quickly became more important than enjoying some drinks out and things like this. So for me, it isn't hard to balance it at all, actually, because I love it so much. And yeah, it just works in with my lifestyle. And like I said, I owe so much to bodybuilding. Like I literally don't know what I'd be doing without having gone down this route and like coaching people and things. But yeah, time management, routine, structure, those are huge. And I find myself in a fortunate position where I can make those myself. I don't have like, I don't know, an office job where a meeting gets moved back an hour. And that means, I don't know, you might miss a meal or you might miss a workout. You have to restructure that every time. It's like, no, I know I'm always free at these times to be able to get food in, go to the gym, go to bed, that sort of thing. And it's very rare that I get knocked out of that, which is, I think, really helped me as a competitor as well.
Nice. Okay, so let's move to Steve now, because I want to dive into, because previously, before I actually met you at, I think it was last season, all I knew was Steve Hall, the guy from the podcast. The guy from the podcast. And then I was like, Steve the athlete. I was like, oh wow, okay, cool, now this gets interesting. So obviously you mentioned that you got into competing a little while back, obviously approaching various different federations, and obviously just kickstarted that competitive season as Steve the athlete. What were some of your early bodybuilding inspirations? Like, who was some of the people that you kind of thought, what, damn, as a natural athlete, that person looks impressive. I want to definitely get up there and kick some butt and see what I can produce.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question, actually, because I think when I first got into it, I don't think social media was definitely not as big as it is now. It's definitely grown tenfold, and I'm so much more within the bodybuilding, natural bodybuilding scene. And I understand, like, there's people like yourself who I can now see, and I know how to, like, I don't know, I can follow the right account, and I find the great competitors, and I have knowledge of who I might be even competing against. Whereas when I first got into it, I was incredibly ignorant. It really came from an internal need to kind of prove something to myself. So I obviously knew of Matt Ogus. He was literally like the GOAT to me. I was like, I want to look like him. And I mean, he is an incredible physique, and like that's the reason he became so popular as well. I think partly is because he just has like one of the most aesthetic physiques as a natural competitor there is. And obviously I came across 3DMJ, so Alberto Nunez, Eric Helms, and those guys. But I never really kind of looked and thought about, I'm going head to head against this person or whatever. I was always very much focused on myself. And the reason I wanted to compete in the first place was essentially to prove to myself that I'd recovered from my head injury. I was like, if I can do like one of the most extreme things to my body, remove like is virtually all my body fat, and then recover out after it, I've kind of, the shadow of whatever that injury has gone and left me. So that's really what drove me the first time. And then as I've gone through, that first time I competed, actually, there's some people who are still competing and fantastic. So Ben Howard is one of them. I competed against him at the UKDFBA. He won our novice, like the novice championship or whatever. I think I came fourth. So yeah, he's obviously continued. He's a pro now with the UKDFBA and a fantastic competitor. He's only continued to like level up and be ever better. And then, yeah, that was really my first season. I had like no awareness, but as I've kind of moved forward, I would say that there's never been physiques that I'm like, that's what I aspire to be. And I think I've always, I doubted my abilities in many ways. So I've never really thought, I can challenge the top. There's obviously the physiques I really admire, and I think they're fantastic. I'm like, I'm never going to be on that level. So I don't even like think about comparing myself to them. I just ultimately always try and do my best. So yeah, I think it all came from Matt Ogus through 3DMJ, and then kind of looked obviously to Ben Howard was an immediate inspiration. And then from there, it's just an overwhelming inspiration from every natural athletes that has come forward from there.
Yeah, no, there's some amazing guys out there that truly do some great work. So let's go back to recap back to that 2021 season for you, because that 2021 season, you've done quite a few shows on that one, right?
Oh man, I don't even know how many I did now. Like I think something like 6, like more than I had planned to do, actually.
Yeah. So take us back to that first one, from that first one to the last one. Sure. How did it go down? You know what I mean? What was the game plan? Was the game plan just to show up, present a good, or was it just to go at every?
Sure. So sorry, you were breaking up a little bit. So I wasn't sure. I think I got the gist of the question though. I'm probably breaking up for you as well at various times. So yeah, for the first show for that season, in fact, it had been 4 years. In fact, 2017 was the season before that. So it had been a long time since I'd competed. And again, I don't know about you, Leon, but when you leave a big gap between kind of contest preps, you almost doubt yourself a little bit. Like, have I gained much muscle? Am I going to look any different? So I started dieting down, and I had some idea of what kind of stage weight I might be. And so I just started dieting down, and like the conditions started coming in maybe even quicker than I imagined. And it probably looks like I gained maybe like 10 pounds of stage weight or of muscle mass, not even stage weight, on my last prep. So, which is significant. Like, you don't get that very often. I doubt I'll ever get that kind of considered like weight change in future. So when a show came up that was very convenient to me, and I was kind of looking at myself, and I was like, I'm not as lean as I would like to be, but let's kind of give it a punt. I just decided, like, let's get my feet wet, let's get into it. I'm really glad I did it, because again, when you haven't stepped on stage for so long, the cobwebs are well and truly there. Like, I can remember, and I stood on stage, and was like, why are my quads trembling? They still trembled like throughout other times I was on stage, but I find that's one of the areas I find hardest with posing, is like
endurance,
gathering the endurance, but also like the nerves. Like, I'm so excited and nervous, and I want to like do my best. I'm like, like, I'm not even trying to tense hard. I'm just like that adrenaline, whatever it is, it's just making it always shakes me. And it's not great, because especially when you can't turn on the quads, they just look like nothing's going on. Or if they're quivering, they kind of look like, are they jiggling? Like, is that fat on there, or what's going on? So I had no expectations going into that show. And it was with the BNBF, who I'd never competed with, but I could compete with them because I think they have, I don't know if this is 8 or 10 years, but whatever. It had been basically a decade since I'd come off the therapy anyway. So I could compete with them, which was cool. So I was like, let's try it. It's convenient. Let's see what I've got, like, just get an idea. And I came third in that show. It was actually, I'm going to forget their names, but the guys that were in my class, I'm really bad with names, so I forget them all the time. But the guys in my class, they both went on to win British titles in the end. So it was definitely a competitive class. And it didn't really, it just was good to get the cobwebs off. It didn't really, like, when you come third, it's not like you're excited because you did really well, like you've done fine, right? But it's also isn't like, oh, I'm at my best, so I'm obviously still like haven't improved that much. It was like, I know I've got more to give. So I'm glad I did that show. Kind of, I got an invite to the finals for them as well, but obviously I think those dates conflicted or whatever anyway, so that I didn't manage to do those. But then I did my first qualifier with the UK DFBA, which was my first planned show. So I went into that again. I didn't really have expectations. I know who I competed against there. At least one guy was Charlie. I don't know if you've had Charlie on here yet, but he's the guy that came third in, I think, he came third at the WNBF. So, I actually beat Charlie at the qualifier for the UK DFBA, and I won that show. So that's been the only show I've ever won in my entire competitive career. Hopefully not the last, but it's certainly the first. And I imagine for you, Leon, when you win, whenever you win, but when I won that for the first time, I actually ended up tearing up. Like I couldn't control it. Like, I never got it. Why competitors like, why'd you cry? You're just winning a show, whatever. But it just like, it was a sudden like, wow, like, I won a show, me. Like, I never would ever expect I could win a show. So that was an incredible feeling. That made the whole season actually like worth it. Like, not that it wouldn't have been worth it anyway, but that was probably one of my highlights for the season, was winning that show. And in some ways I hate that, because I do think, and I always talk about it, like, you should compete not for trophies, and you should compete not for placings, but for yourself, because you can't control who turns up. You can only control what you do and bring your best. But the feeling of winning is incredible. And the feeling of not winning is not a nice feeling sometimes. So it is really hard. And I do always like to think, like, if you've beat your past performances, whatever, like, you've done your best, like, that should bring you enough solace. And like, you remember via photos and like the fact that you're better than ever. But yeah, that win was pretty incredible for me. And that was great. And I knew I still had more to give at that stage. And I had obviously, you mentioned kind of, did you set your season up with these all in mind? And yes, so I'd planned completely backwards from the WNBF finals was like my last planned show. Obviously there was then two shows after that, actually, which I was with you at both, which I hadn't planned for, but they eventually, as the season was in like developing and I was seeing how I'd done all right, I was like, oh, maybe I could actually get a qualification for Vegas. So I had it in mind that I'd be able to kind of continue my season for that. So after the UKDFBA, what show was after that? I think it was the WNBF, or was it the UKDFBA finals? I think it was the UKDFBA finals actually came before the WNBF. But anyway, so I went to that. I think that might have been my best look of the entire season at the UKDFBA. I was quite a bit heavier than I was even like in Vegas. I think I was like just under 170 pounds, whereas 175 pounds on stage at the UKDFBA finals. But I just felt like that was a great look for me all round in terms of like, you know, you can chase condition, but if it sacrifices size and fullness on your physique, and that's areas that maybe you lack versus others, it can count against you, and maybe that condition wasn't worth the cost. So it's about bringing the whole package essentially as a bodybuilder. So potentially that was my best look, and I went into that show knowing that in previous season UKDFBA I placed 5th at the UKDFBA finals, so I wanted to beat 5th. That was for sure. Like I was like, if I do worse than 5th, like I'm going to be pretty devastated. But in reality, you always want a top 3 placing. And it was a very competitive class, as in the UK like finals they always are. I came 4th at that. It was a bit gutting, I must admit. Like it hit me a little bit, especially because I'd won my qualifier and Charlie stepped above me at that. Like he came 3rd, so he beat me there, and I was like, fuck, like what's he done? What haven't I done? He obviously improved a lot. He brought much more condition, and I would say he just has better shape than I do. Like most bodybuilders probably have better shape than I do. It's not my strong point is shape, which is an important factor. And then the WNBF finals was after that. So it knocked me and my confidence a little bit going into it. It didn't change any of my processes. Like you can't let that, like in after shows, like there was no binging after shows. There was no like meals out. It was very much back to plan. Like when I'm in prep and like the blinkers are on and I'm 100% invested. So then went to the WNBF, and that's where I really had my heart set on a top 3 placing. I was like, just because to go to the WNBF finals for me was very much about meeting other competitors and like seeing the Americans, particularly because obviously it's in Vegas, so there was going to be a lot of them. I knew Alberto Nunez was going to be there, and some friends, and just to be, it was like another journey on this natural bodybuilding kind of journey as a whole, like to be able to go to a world final. I'd never done that before. So I really set my heart on that. And I'd kind of built myself up thinking that I certainly had a chance. Like it wasn't like I was out like of a chance. Like I was certainly within that. But obviously went to that, and you took top place, well deserved, and you went pro, which is fantastic. And then there were some competitors there who I'd actually, like we say, you see me put more people on social media who you're going to compete against, but ultimately you never know who's going to turn up. So there's some people who turned up who I had maybe never even seen, and like. There's no point focusing too much on what other people are doing anyway. You just have to do your best and bring your best. So obviously came 4th at that. And that was crushing because it was like 1 placing away from that invite, or at least that's what I thought. And Charlie again took it from me. So it was another like head-on battle with Charlie, and he freaking took it again. And he's super impressive. He went on, or he might have even, I think after that, or no, before that, I think he'd won the MPA, like maybe a title. He won a title with them, which again, incredibly well deserved. So I kind of left that really quite disheartened. I'd already signed up to the Two Bros show just because I was like, why not? It's in a couple of weeks. I'm still in shape. And that was my philosophy for the season, was like, I want to get a lot of shows under my belt, a lot of experience to just trial peaking methods to see what my best look is. And when you're in shape, I don't know, I didn't compete it for 4 years. I was like, I want to get a load of shows under my belt just for that experience. I didn't want to go and do like a load of qualifiers with the same federation or something, but I just wanted to try a load of different federations, see which ones, I don't know, I particularly liked, and again, get that experience. So after that show, Andrew reached out to me. He was like, how would you feel if I gave you something, like if you got an invite to finals, would you take it? I was like, if you were to offer me an invite to finals because you felt like I deserved it, I absolutely would. My goal was to get top 3 to go to finals. So if I got a top 3, I'd be going. Like it was no question in my mind. So he offered me it there, and then that was great. It was a great feeling to be able to like go on and take that. We obviously then had the Two Bros, which was, I didn't really, that's the one show I didn't really peak for. Same with the BNBF, my first show, actually. I didn't really peak for that. I did like a little bit of a higher carb day, but I kind of was like, I still want to try and make progress in my physique in terms of fat loss. So I don't want to take like the gears off too much or put the brakes on too much in that regard. So I went into that Two Bro show again with like no expectations. And then, yeah, I took third in that. And that again was like a bit gutting because I was like, fuck, I didn't expect to beat you, Leon, to put it out there. Because I was like, well, you just beaten me like a couple of weekends before. I was like, I was still like, oh, these are different judges. Maybe they'll be looking for something else. It's a subjective sport. I was like, fuck, I'm going to bring my all. I changed my posing up a little bit to see if that would help kind of get around some of the structural issues. And then, taking third, I was like, man, and Nathan took second. I was like, fuck, Nathan was the novice. Like, why have I lost to a novice? And like, you can't really look at it that way. I know that. But that kind of knocked me a little bit and knocked my confidence a little bit. But again, like I said, as a competitor, you've got to just be that athlete, be that competitor and continue forward. I couldn't have done anything different about that. And it wouldn't have changed the outcome anyway. So went into kind of continuing forward for Worlds. And then that was just an experience of a lifetime. Just the experience, first of all, of having to consider food and like the 11-hour time difference and like the impact of travel on your physique. Going through that now, when I have clients, if they go abroad, I'll just be so better prepared to be able to help them. And because I didn't have a coach for this season, nor actually my past season, I had people definitely helping me on the side. But I had to manage a lot of those variables myself. And I know how stressful that was and can be. So it's great that I've got that experience that I can help others through it. And now I know if I get that opportunity again in future, like how much less stressful I can make it. So that, and the World's experience was just incredible throughout. Like, first of all, I love America. So I knew I was going to enjoy that. Never been to Vegas, and Vegas, I don't know if that is your first time to Vegas, Leon.
That was my first time. That's beautiful, man. Beautiful, epic.
Crazy. Like you see it in films and stuff, but then when you're there, it's like, whoa, like, okay, this is real. This is like adult Disney. I get it. Like, I get why people come here and they love it. And the weather was nice, whereas in the UK, UK weather, it's not that great. Whereas like beautiful blue skies, a little bit warm, which was kind of nice. And so, went through it all there. And like, it just felt very well run. I felt like a proper, like, for the first time in my bodybuilding career, I felt like a proper, like, good bodybuilder. Like, I'm at a world stage. I feel taken care of. Like, you feel like a proper athlete at that point, especially traveling with the team as well. Like, where you've got everyone like, and like in bodybuilding, it can be a bit of it's definitely a selfish sport, and you don't have a team. So that's the first time I've ever had a team of people where I'm like I want everyone to do super well, even if I was competing against them, which thankfully I didn't have to compete against anyone. But even if I had to, like, you'd just be happy for anyone in your team. So it was a huge honor to represent the UK in that way, in the WNBF, like the best natural bodybuilding federation in the world. It's just the highlight of my career. I hope there's higher highlights, but that was incredible. And then meeting all the other athletes, everyone was so friendly. Everyone was so nice. I wouldn't change that season for the world. It's like mostly full of highs. I had some lows where I really doubted myself. Where I'm really pleased that I just continued to pursue. And obviously at the world final as well, I came second in my class, which was incredible. Again, I have to be honest. Part of me thought I took first. I was like, I think I beat this guy on condition. Like, I had some things that I beat him on, but again, like, he had incredible shape, like tiny waist, super broad shoulders, sweeping quads, like everything you would want in that regard. And he had a lot of muscle in his frame as well. So he well deservedly took that. And it's lit a real fire under my like arse. Not that I kind of needed it, but it made me believe a little bit more in myself as a competitor, and how like everyone has, I talk about it like in terms of genetics, just to kind of talk about that a little bit. Like, you could look at people with like top trumps in terms of genetics. Like, you're not going to have 100 on everything. You're going to have 100 on some and maybe 50 on others. And there's some muscle groups you might have it more on, some others you don't, because there are some things I know I'm very good at and I'm blessed. Like, losing fat for me is not a challenge, like, particularly. I stay lean quite comfortably. I really enjoy like monotony and consistency, and like I can do that sort of thing. I think much of that is genetic traits for me. And there are other things that I don't have that other people will have, but maybe I can beat them. And like, and that's why I love, like, especially bodybuilding at that level, there's no one with 100 of everything. So you could just see what you might be able to take. And there's always a way that you can level up. And like I said, posing tweets can go a long way too. So yeah, I'm sure you're the same, Leon. Like, even at this advanced stage in our career, there's still little things we can do that can take us to that next stage.
100%, and I'm still working on that now, man. You know what I mean? I'm looking at, okay, cool. When I get back on, it has to be different. It has to be that next level. You know what I mean? So it's just always just identifying where those areas are and just homing in on them and bringing them up.
Yeah, that's it. That's why, like, that's bodybuilding in a nutshell. Like, progression, just like keep pursuing it. That's why I think a lot of bodybuilders are just like, they put that into other areas of their life and they're extremely successful.
Yeah. Well, mate, it was an epic season and it was great to just watch your progress all the way through it. You know what I mean? I think some key takeaways there. You can win a regional, and then we enjoy it. We all enjoy that win. Someone gets the second, they can steam past you at the finals. You know, we hear about this happening all the time, right? And I sometimes think we learn more from taking the loss than the win, because sometimes when we take the win, we get blinded by the areas that we should have picked up, that we was close on getting beat by. But the guy that took the loss will pick up on every single one of those and then steam past you on the next one. You know what I mean? So it's just a bit of give and take on that, but lots of learning as you go through. You know what I mean? And I think, you know, it's really good when I see athletes that go from show to show, if they have got the ability and the capacity to keep pushing from show to show and make improvements, know where to kind of apply the brakes, when to not to apply the brakes, and make the relevant tweaks and get the results that they want, and salute them on that run. You know, I never used to understand when, I remember, I think it was like when I saw King Soul just literally just swiping up the board of all the natural competitions, and then went to PCA and done some other stuff, and I was just like, damn, that guy's just going from show to show. But hey, if you can make that run, if you got the time and you got the energy and you got the commitment, just do it. You only live once, and just make every minute count. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I think as well, whilst you said like the losses, you certainly learn more from the losses. But I imagine for him, he's like riding that high of just like win. He's like, what can I like? Let's just keep going, because that gives you a boost in its own right. You got to. I think you have, like you said, you've got to take the losses as a learning lesson, and like let's build upon it. Like if you did everything you could, or if you didn't do everything you could, like there's ways to improve.
100%. And I think sometimes we get often on social media, we only see the wins, right? We don't see the losses. They're not that often recorded. So, you know, we may just think, okay, that guy's just constantly just winning show after show after show. But if I look back at my competitive history, I haven't won every single show. You know what I mean? It doesn't work like that. And, you know, some of the greats have been like that as well. So, you know, I think it just goes to show that sometimes we just need to just obviously focus on our own goals and just make sure we get out of what we need out of it for our personal own growth. It's as simple as that. So Steve, talk to me about your plans for when you're going to be returning to competitive bodybuilding. When is that? And are you going to be chasing that pro status? What's the game plan, man?
Definitely. So, I'm pretty certain not next year. At the moment, the way things are going, like for me to make like the strides I made between 2017 to 2021 were because of the amount of time that I had off. I think like time is like one of the best things for a bodybuilder. Like the best natural bodybuilders are normally the ones who have been doing it the longest. So I think I need more time to bring up some of my deficits. I just have to bring like a unquestionable amount of muscle mass along with condition and work on those areas. And I think that's just going to need time. So I think I'll obviously taking this season off, probably next season. And then I'm looking at like 2024, 2025. That's probably when I'll look to do it again, because ultimately I love competing too. And it was sad sometimes to leave it so long. And also, and people talk about this, like, I don't know, would you gain more muscle if you never competed? Because when you're competing, you're not growing. But when you compete, it drives you. There's just something that I can't even like talk about it necessarily. I can't like tell a non-competitor, like there's just something when you do that competitive season, it just drives you, it just buys you a lot of like extra growth somehow. Like it just boosts 100%. you. So I don't want to leave it too long where I forget like what competing's like or anything like that. And I want that drive back. So probably 2024, 2025. And nice. For the first time in my career, I can say like I really want to drive for that pro card and not feel embarrassed about like having that ambition. I actually feel like if things fall in my favor somewhat, they have to, I guess, because there's always someone better out there. If they fall in my favor and I do everything right, like I think I have a physique that is of a level where it could go pro. Yeah, I guess that's as confident as I want to put it, but I'll be gunning for a pro card for the season. If I don't get it, I don't get it. It's fine. Maybe it'll come at some point. Maybe it's not ever going to be in my grasp, but I'll certainly try and do my best and ultimately bring a better package than I did previous.
Nice. And hopefully we'll get you back on the WNBF UK show when you return.
I hope so. I'll definitely be on. Yeah, no doubt I'll be competing with the WNBF Pro card is the one I'm after. So
nice. That's good. So Steve, also some good news. Congratulations on recently becoming a CMP sponsored athlete as well, man. That's a big move as well. So talk to me a little bit about what this opportunity means for you and what can we expect from the collaboration with CMP.
Yeah, it was exciting to see them because it was exciting to see them collaborate with the WNBF in the first place, because CMP, same with you probably, Leon, when we first got into bodybuilding, they were one of the only like bodybuilding supplement companies out there. So I'd used them like all the way back then. And then as time's gone, like there's tons of supplement companies now with all these like rainbows and flashy stuff, whatever. And CMP maybe died down a little bit, but I'd seen them spurt back up, especially like, again, saw the collaboration with the WNBF. And I spoke to a few of the guys at that show as well, and then just spoke to them a little bit and saw what they were doing with their range and what they were trying to do in terms of trying to kind of keep to their bodybuilding roots, but also level up in terms of like what some of the newer competitors in the market are doing. And ultimately they are trying to level up everyone in terms of like education, but also help them with their supplementation and be that kind of resource where people can, like a trusted supplementation company that isn't just trying to grasp your money, which I really kind of relate to, especially with like trying to give back to with the educational side. So yeah, I'm very excited to be collaborating with them. And actually part of what we're doing at the moment is part of their level up campaign. So they're releasing new supplement ranges where they've essentially reformulated them. They've actually like repackaged them so they look better as well. They've reformulated the flavor and things too, and the kind of ingredient profile. So they're doing that. And then alongside that, they're getting some of their sponsored athletes, including myself, to do some educational content. So I'm working with them where I might be talking through like a supplement and how that might benefit you, and like refer to some of the evidence and the science, and not just like, I don't know, trust me, I'm big bro or something like this. Like there's actually like I couldn't sell my soul like that. And I'm probably not big enough to be able to do it anyway, to be honest. But yeah, doing that sort of thing. So collaborating with them to help further educate people and drive them down the right path with kind of help level up their physique.
Yeah, sounds good, man. Well, best of luck with that one and CMP, guys. And remember, guys, CMP are our show sponsor and the WNBF UK sponsor as well. So make sure you go check out their website, check out some of their cool products. I recommend the EAAs, the pig's flavor. That's for me just like epic, simply epic. So Steve, just to round it up, what advice would you give to some of our first timers and novices going into our show on the 17th of July? Because that's rapidly approaching. And I've seen some immense, kind of competitors and athletes kind of stepping forward for this show. What advice would you give them, my man?
Yeah, I think, that's a really good question. I would say, like, don't get ahead of yourself. Try not to stress yourself out too much. Stress never does any good for your physique in terms of like how it's going to look. So like have your plan in terms of whatever you're doing your peak week. Hopefully you have a coach or you have a plan for that. Have a plan for that. Don't do anything wild or crazy, or listen to your coach, whatever you're doing in that regard, because they're hopefully helping you in the best way possible. And then for show day, again, just like have a plan to execute so that you're not, I don't know, looking backstage and asking people like, oh, what are you doing? And then you copy them or something. Like have something you're going to stick to and do, and something that's tried and true. And I think that will help you a lot. And then try and enjoy the day as best you can, especially your time on stage. We diet for months upon months and months. And if you consider all the off seasons in terms of years of like stuffing our face with food and training hard and all this, to step on stage then for like moments, really. So when you go on stage, be like happy to be there. Be like, this is like the time of my life if you can, and like put a smile on your face, be full of energy, because it's not going to last forever. So that's always helps. And I think it helps in terms of for the judges, they like to see you happy up there as well. It's only going to help how you're looking. So those would be my main things, like try not to stress, have a plan, and then on show day, like sit back, execute, and enjoy the time on stage, because it's a short period of time.
Love that. Steve, man, thank you for being on the show. Some great insight into a little bit about your background, what you're currently doing, and just, aspirations for the future going forward. So, buddy, best of luck for it. And, I'm sure we're going to be seeing you at one of our shows. Hopefully we get down at the first time, as if not the first time, definitely the Supernaturals. You've got to make a return and be in that crowd, because there's some amazing athletes coming forward. The Supernatural ones on the 9th of October is just going to be simply epic. I'm following the WNBF UK just kind of hashtag, and I'm just like, damn. You know what I mean? I'm glad I done 2021, not 2022. So, you know what I mean? It's going to be.
I know how you feel.
You know what I mean? So guys, just remember, the first time as a novice show is on the 17th of July. Okay, so just make sure you're registered, and make sure you get your spectators tickets, bring your friends, family. We want to hear the noise in the crowd. It's always good. There's a good vibe in the room. And you got the big one, the Supernaturals, October in Birmingham, the Crescent Theatre. Guys, there's 2 epic opportunities here with WNBF UK. Let's get on it. Let's push this natty scene to the as far as we can push it, and let's get some amazing experience for 2022. Do you agree, Steve?
Absolutely, hands down. And I'll definitely be at one of those shows, at least like the novice one. I'm planning to be there, so I should be at the novice show. It's in London, so I got no excuse for that one. So it's in my calendar. I should be there.
We'll be there, guys.
I'll be looking.
So nice one. All right then, guys. So until the next one, that's it from me. And this is it from Steve. See you soon.
Cheers, guys.
Check out CMP, our sponsors, and sign up for our events at www.wnbfuk.com.